Most predators survive by remaining invisible. They strike in the dark, they wash away the blood, and they bury their secrets deep in the earth to avoid the light of day. But in the late 1960s, a phantom emerged from the California fog who completely inverted the psychology of murder. He didn't want to hide, he wanted an audience. On August 1st, 1969, 3 major newspapers in San Francisco received nearly identical handwritten letters. The envelopes contained pieces of a complex 408-symbol cryptogram. The writer issued a terrifying ultimatum: print the ciphers on the front page, or he would go on a weekend killing spree. He wasn't just a killer, he was a psychological terrorist who held an entire state hostage with a pen and a postage stamp. He mocked the police, he threatened to blow up a school bus full of children. He hunted young couples in isolated lovers' lanes, wore a bizarre executioner's hood, and attacked an entire city's sense of safety. Despite composite sketches, surviving witnesses, bloody fingerprints, and dozens of taunting letters sent directly to the authorities, he was never caught. He simply faded back into the dark. The police had a puzzle, the public had a nightmare, and the killer, he had a name. Before the cryptograms, before the media circus, the terror began quietly on the freezing, desolate outskirts of Vallejo, California. December 20th, 1968, Lake Herman Road. It was a pitch-black stretch of gravel, a well-known lover's lane heavily surrounded by hills and completely cut off from the main highway. High school students David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen parked their car to escape the cold. They were entirely alone until another car pulled up beside them in the dark. What happened next was not a robbery, it was an execution. Forensic evidence showed the killer forced the teenagers out of their vehicle. David was shot point blank in the head. Betty Lou ran for her life, but the killer methodically shot her 5 times in the back. For 6 months, the police had nothing. No motive, no weapon, and no suspects. The murder seemed like a tragic, isolated act of senseless violence. But on the 4th of July, 1969, the phantom returned. Just a few miles away at Blue Rock Springs Park, another young couple, Darlene Farron and Mike Mageau, were parked in the dark. Another car pulled up. A man stepped out, holding a blinding flashlight in one hand and a 9mm pistol in the other. He fired a barrage of bullets into the passenger window, killing Darlene and severely wounding Mike. This time, the killer didn't stay silent. Less than an hour after the attack, the Vallejo Police Department switchboard rang. The dispatcher answered, expecting an emergency. Instead, a heavy, monotonous, incredibly calm voice spoke into the receiver. "I wish to report a double murder," the voice said. "If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The phantom had finally spoken. The game had officially begun. The phone call proved the killer was arrogant, but his next move proved he was highly calculated. Weeks after the Blue Rock Springs attack, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald all received letters with exact details of the murders. Details only the police and the killer could know. Included in the envelopes were 3 separate pieces of a cipher. The killer claimed that if the police could crack the code, it would reveal his true identity. The FBI, the CIA, and naval intelligence immediately went to work. The nation's top cryptographic minds stared at the strange, erratic symbols, weather signs, backwards alphabet letters, and astrological markings. They were completely stumped. But it wasn't a supercomputer or a government agency that cracked the killer's code. It was a local high school history teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife, Betty. Working at their kitchen table, they hypothesized that a killer with this much ego would start his message with the word I. By identifying repetitive symbols, the encrypted wall finally shattered. But the message hidden inside offered no identity, only madness. The translated cipher began, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience." He went on to claim that the people he murdered would become his slaves in the afterlife. It was a terrifying glimpse into a deeply fractured psychopathic mind. But the killer was furious that the newspapers were referring to him as the Vallejo shooter or the Cipher killer. He wanted his own brand. In his next letter, he drew a symbol at the top of the page, a circle with a cross violently drawn through it, resembling the crosshairs of a sniper rifle. Below the symbol, he wrote the words that would haunt California for decades. "This is the Zodiac speaking." By September 1969, the Zodiac had proven he could strike in the dark and taunt the police through the mail. But his ego demanded escalation. He needed to prove he was completely unstoppable, even in day broad light. Lake Berryessa, Napa County, a beautiful, sunlit Saturday afternoon. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing on a remote, grassy peninsula near the water. The area was quiet, isolated, and peaceful. Then Cecilia noticed a man stepping out from behind a tree. He was not hiding in the shadows, but he was dressed for a nightmare. He wore a perfectly square black executioner's hood that draped down to his chest. Over the eye holes, he wore clip-on sunglasses to hide his gaze, and stitched perfectly in the center of his chest in bright white thread was his massive signature, the crossed circle. He held a gun and carried a heavy, terrifyingly long knife in a wooden sheath. He approached the terrified couple and demanded their car keys and money, claiming he was an escaped convict. He forced Cecilia to tie Brian up with pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline, and then he bound Cecilia. As they lay completely helpless on their stomachs, the killer's demeanor shifted. He didn't rob them. Without warning, he drew the heavy blade and began stabbing them both repeatedly with absolute silent savagery. He left them bleeding out in the grass and calmly walked back to Brian's car. Using a black marker, he drew his crossed circle symbol on the car door, writing the dates of his previous murders and adding a new one. September 27, 69, 6:30, by knife. Brian Hartnell miraculously survived the brutal attack to describe the terrifying costume. Cecilia Shepard tragically died from her wounds 2 days later. The Zodiac had just proven he could walk right up to his victims in the glaring sun, wearing a theatrical costume, and simply disappear. The Lake Berryessa attack was theatrical, but the Zodiac's next move completely shattered the illusion of safety in the Bay Area. He abandoned the isolated lovers' lanes and stepped directly into the bustling heart of San Francisco. October 11, 1969. A 29-year-old cab driver named Paul Stein picked up a passenger headed for the upscale, heavily populated neighborhood of Presidio Heights. When the cab parked, the passenger didn't pay the fare. He put a 9mm pistol to Stein's head and pulled the trigger. 3 teenagers across the street watched the killer calmly wipe down the cab, cut a massive, bloody square of fabric out of Paul Stein's shirt, and walk away into the fog. The police were called instantly. 2 patrolmen, Don Folk and Eric Zelms, were just 2 blocks away. As they raced toward the scene, they passed a heavy-set white man wearing glasses, walking calmly down the sidewalk. But the police dispatcher had made a catastrophic error. The radio broadcast stated the suspect was a black male. The officers drove right past the Zodiac. They let the most notorious serial killer in American history fade into the dark Presidio forest. 2 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received a new letter. Inside was a piece of Paul Stein's blood-soaked shirt. The letter was not just a confession, it was a declaration of war. The Zodiac mocked the police for failing to catch him, and then he dropped the ultimate threat. He wrote, "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." California was completely paralyzed. Armed police officers rode shotgun on elementary school buses. Parents locked their doors. The Zodiac had achieved total psychological dominance over an entire state. After the Paul Stein murder, the Zodiac never struck definitively again. But the letters didn't stop. For years, he continued to torment the press, claiming he had killed dozens more, demanding people wear Zodiac buttons on their lapels, and sending increasingly complex ciphers. The police interviewed thousands of suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, a man with a dark history and a disturbing obsession with the case, wore a literal Zodiac brand watch and owned the same type of typewriter used in the letters. But his handwriting and DNA never conclusively matched. In 2020, over 50 years after it was mailed, a massive team of amateur cryptographers finally cracked the infamous Z340 cipher using advanced computer algorithms. But there was no name hidden inside, just more taunts. "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me," the cracked code read. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." The terrifying truth of the Zodiac is not just that he got away with murder, it is that he got exactly what he wanted. He didn't want to be caught, he wanted immortality. He wanted us to spend decades staring at his symbols, analyzing his handwriting, and looking over our shoulders in the dark. He engineered his own myth, and he won. Welcome to Arcanum. If you seek the truth hidden in the classified shadows, subscribe and leave a mark in the comments below. Who do you think was hiding behind the cipher?